had burnt down several vehicles. The individual in question in this incident was a fanatic. If you read up on it, it was a fanatic of the RCMP. He was obsessed with the RCMP. He actually had a shrine of the RCMP in his home. He collected RCMP memorabilia, including police vehicles. And one of the police vehicles that he used was a replica, almost identical to anybody. I mean, I'm quite nuanced in policing, and I would not tell that that's a fake RCMP vehicle when I saw it. So if someone's
driving around it on the night in question too, wasn't he?
Yeah, forget it. Like it looked like an RCMP vehicle. So he had a replica, almost a true to life replica of an RCMP vehicle, and he actually had on an RCMP police uniform, which was an actual RCMP uniform. And so they don't know what happened, where he got this stuff, but a large portion of what happened in these incidents is a cause and a result of fires, whether they were set off by gasoline. He had large amounts of gasoline on hand, and by Molotov cocktail pipe bomb sort of.
But also another thing, Constantinos, worth mentioning is that when Nana and I were both reciting the terms of the regulatory impact statement that accompanied the amnesty order, Mr. Trudeau and his government were specifically addressing public mass shootings. Now, can you clarify, or from your research, how Mr. Workman specifically killed? Was it in a public setting, or were these targeted killings?
So there was a mixture of both. He started off, it was a domestic incident with a previous partner that he had. He killed her. He moved from location to location, so house to house. Some of them were designated chosen targets of people that he knew. Others seemed to be random. It has not been classified as a case of domestic terrorism. It cannot be classified as a case of a mass shooting, because a mass shooting by definition is the killing. It depends, it varies, but it's between 4 and 5 people in a single incident with no cool off period. So that means in one go, you go and attack one location and you kill as many people as you can. If you reach that number, it's a mass shooting. It's not a mass shooting, it's an actual spree shooting. So I'm not saying that there's that much of a difference, and that the difference is it implicates a debate of further back and forth.
Right.
But what I will say is that the guns that he had on him, or that they found in his possession. Now the public still doesn't know what type of firearms they were. They found 4 firearms in his possession. They don't know which 4, if all 4 were in his possession physically when they found him dead, or does in his possession mean that he had them at home or in a car or whatever.
Right.
And we don't know. We also know it's been confirmed now that those firearms were not registered. They were not. They were not of the knowledge, or they were not to the knowledge of the RCMP. So those guns were obtained illegally. At least 3 of the 4. We know now 3 out of the 4 firearms that were in his possession were obtained illegally through the United States. And he did not have a possession and acquisition license. So the point of what I'm saying now is this is the very important aspect of what the Order in Council is supposed to be doing by its implication. It's supposed to stop mass shootings. That's why it was brought forward. This type of incident, call it a mass shooting or spree shooting, it doesn't matter. This type of incident would still potentially occur again, whether this Order in Council is in place or it is not. This man could have still gone through and obtained those firearms, because 3 out of the 4 were obtained illegally. We don't know the details of the firearms, like I said, but the Order in Council would not prevent this type of shooting had it happened again in the future.
I have a couple of simple questions.
So black market versus legal. Take it away.
I have a couple of simple questions. So how many people did you say died in total?
22, 23, including the suspect.
And how many people died from fire?
9 people.
So
8 or 9.
It's 9.
So
killed by firearm.
So 9 were killed. So that would be, because if 9 and you said 24, 23, right?
23, including Mr. Workman. So 22 victims and 9.
So 13 people were killed by fire, by gun, right?
Yes.
Okay. So certainly, I mean, to your own, or quoting you loosely, there's not much difference between a spree or a mass shooting, right? Because it's semantics, really, right? Because we're talking about a cool-off period. The point here is 13 people died from gunshot wounds, right? So gun violence is a very important thing, or it's a big part of this debate, because guns killed, what, 33% more people in this spree than fires. And even with the fires, it wasn't direct exposure to fire, right? It was the residual effect. So
no, I say that it was either through smoke inhalation or direct burn of the body, and then they died in the structure fire. We don't know how they died.
Okay, but some of them did die from smoke inhalation. It wasn't necessarily that they were like caught up in the fire, right?
The important thing is that 9 out of the 22 were not killed by a firearm. So a good majority were killed through other means than firearm.
Well,
and it's not mentioned in any of the news articles, which is
fair enough. And since we are talking about the media portrayal, so yeah, since we are talking about media portrayal, I will relent in that particular instance that the media should probably be putting more of an emphasis on that as well. But if you think about that, a 33% increase in murder rates from a firearm compared to the fire itself is a significant difference in any way you look at it statistically, right? So they might be labeling it a shooting, and if you think about it, as far as statistics go, they can make a logical argument that far more people died from being shot than died from being burned. So in that particular instance, I can completely understand why they're presenting it that way. I'm not saying that it's the right way to present it, and I can also understand why there's a logical progression in regards to the fact, like I said, that most mass shootings or the primary weapon used in mass shootings worldwide are assault style firearms. So if this has happened, and it's not a mass shooting by your own definition, it's a spree shooting, but they're lumping them into the same, they're putting them in the same category in this particular instance.
Now, Nana, there is one thing that I think for the last part of this initial segment that I do want to harp on.
Sure.
There is a big distinction here between illegally owned firearms and legally owned firearms. Now, the amnesty order prohibits or puts this restriction, and perhaps that's the wrong terminology now that we know, but it prohibits legal ownership. Whereas, and I think Konstantinos was making this point, illegally owned guns that are smuggled across the border, they are still a very much contributor to gun violence statistics and mass shootings, both of which this amnesty order addresses. However, the problem is illegally owned guns or smuggled guns were not addressed by this amnesty order.
I mean, you can throw in, I'm assuming we're throwing in the 3D or the 3D printed guns as well.
That's right.
That as well. Okay. Now that, I mean, while you make an interesting point, here's my question. What government has been able to effectively stop crime?
That's a very broad question, and you have to be much more specific than that.
No. I'm talking about crime in general. What government has ever been, or what ruling class has ever been able to stop crime? Not a single one. You know why? Because crime is always going to happen. The best a government can do is make things illegal or make it more difficult for people to be able to.
You think by doing this, that governments can do by making something illegal?
By making it more difficult.
You bring up two very relevant situations where that happened, and that actually didn't go at all the way that people thought it would.
Why didn't it?
The war on drugs.
Yes.
Okay? The prohibition of marijuana use.
Yep.
Okay, which now we see has a lot more beneficial effects on not only the mind but the body as well.
Sure.
And so people now are allowed to purchase marijuana in Canada across the country. Okay. It was illegal for 100 years plus.
And
prohibition, the idea that prohibiting something will lessen the extent at which this thing will be utilized, or the extent that this thing will be accessible, is not an act.
But that's not the point I'm making, because the question here is, why is the fact that illegally used guns are the ones that are most used in crimes, right?
So
Why are they most used in crimes?
The question, what Ian is saying is that this bill is not actually addressing the fact that the most utilized guns in crime are illegally used guns, right?
That's right.
This bill that has been passed or whatever was passed.
But the point is the guns are illegal. They are brought into the country illegally, right? Or they are printed in the country illegally. As far as what the government can do, they have made it illegal for those guns to be brought into the country. If people bring the guns into the country by criminal means, then that is somebody breaking the law.
They're already illegal, though, Nana.
That's the thing.
It's illegal.
Let's give Dan an opportunity, please.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's kind of contradicting, because you're saying that, okay, the only way possible to ensure that these problems do not happen again is to make these guns illegal. But it's like, what? Hold on.
That's not what I'm saying.
It's as if, I don't know, from how I understand it, it's.
Let me break down my argument. Let me say what I'm not saying that let's make all guns illegal. I'm not even saying let's make some guns illegal. What I'm saying here is that your question specifically was, what can the government do to prevent illegal guns from coming into the country?
Well,
right?
Now you're grossly paraphrasing what I said.
Okay.
Actually, I said.
Then please ask me the question again, because perhaps I misunderstood.
It's not. In fact, I wasn't asking a question. I was essentially stating the discrepancy in the order, because there's a distinction here between addressing illegally possessed guns.
Sure.
Look, Mr. Workman's gun, we don't, again, as Constantino said, we don't know which firearm it was, where he obtained it, whether from the States, whether from here, and he just stole it from a law-abiding citizen. We don't know that. Sure. The main problem is the amnesty order misses the regulation of guns that are illegal. And statistics show, as we'll move into the second segment, and we'll show our viewers and our listeners, statistics show that more gun violence is perpetrated by illegally owned guns.
Well, how do you regulate illegally owned guns? What can the government do to regulate illegally owned guns?
Here's my thought on this. So the government is quick to ban firearms from illegally from legal firearm owners such as myself. Sure. But they are not quick to do anything to ensure that a situation like this never happens again. We're going to take away the guns.
So what do you want them to do?
But we're going to take away the guns from the law-abiding citizens.
No, but that's
right. Let him finish.
Okay.
What problem have you solved by doing that? You've taken away the guns that people like myself have and take care of and lock up every night or after we use them. Where is the solution to stopping guns from coming over the border so that a situation like this doesn't happen again? The government is quick to ban these firearms and to take them away, to take them away from me. But where are the other steps? Where is the plan to ensure that this doesn't happen again? Where is we're going to put more funding into the borders, which Mr. Bill Blair has admitted that they have had their funding cut. Where is the plan to put more money into the police? And I believe now they want to take away more money from the police. Where is the plan to ensure that these firearms cannot come over and be used in such ways or be obtained by criminals? Where is that plan?
Okay, so what you're saying is that you would like the government to invest more money into keeping illegal guns from coming across the border.
The problem, yes.
Okay, as Constantino said, I don't know whether it was 5-10 minutes ago, there was prohibition and alcohol still got into the country, right? If you can try to stop crime from happening by prohibiting it, but if crime is going to happen, it's going to happen. I'm not saying the government shouldn't invest more money in perhaps looking into that. But the point is, if you say, how is the government going to stop illegal guns being smuggled across the border? Certainly, they can put more money towards that. But as far as passing any sort of law or prohibiting anything, there's nothing they can do to prohibit illegal guns from coming into the country, because they're illegal. They're already prohibited from coming into the country.
And on that note, we are going to move directly into our second segment.